what's up? How's it going? My name is Gabby. Welcome back to my channel. And today I'm going to be doing a very specific horror books recommendation video because it's going to be horror books that feature haunted houses because it's October and it feels right. And also, I just really love horror novels that have a haunted house at the center of the book. Like, that's just one of my favorite things. I just love reading about haunted houses. So these are going to be all of the books that I've read that feature haunted houses that I feel like I should tell you about. The very first one to kick off this recommendation list is going to be a classic because it's The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, first published in 1959. And I actually just recently read this book for a reading vlog that will hopefully be going up very soon. I mean, I don't know, I've kind of hit a slump, not gonna lie. But this book was surprising, and even though this book is a classic, I just really enjoyed the writing style in this, which is something that I was not expecting. This book is incredibly different from the TV series. If you're at all familiar with the TV show, I'm a huge fan of the TV show. It's one of my top favorite shows ever, and so I went into this one with pretty high expectations, but I had heard that the book is super different, and I would definitely agree. The book is really different from the show because in this book we're following this man named Dr. Montague, and he's searching for evidence that this haunting is real in this house, and so he invites these people to come and stay with him in Hill House so that they can get evidence with all of them there together that something's actually going on there. And the people that come are characters that you might be familiar with in the show, like Theodora, Eleanor, which is Nell, and then Luke. Yeah, it was just a really interesting time. It's really short. It's only like 200 pages, and I just think it's a really great story about a haunted house that's perfect for this time of year. One of my absolute all-time favorite books is Kill Creek by Scott Thomas. This one is a haunted house story that features these 4 horror authors who are all going to stay the night on Halloween night in the most haunted house in America, which is Kill Creek. And it's going to be getting live streamed to the public. Like, this book just has the most unique, cool premise that I've ever freaking heard. And it also lives up to that hype for me because I absolutely loved this. This was in my top 5 favorite books that I read last year. I love the discussion about being a horror writer and all of the discussion about what makes horror in the first place. And also, this haunted house is just so spooky and so atmospheric. It just really makes the story great. Another recent favorite that I read earlier this summer is The Book of Accidents by Chuck Wendig. This one just went on sale in July, and this one is this really great haunted house story that it just has so much more to it than the average haunted house story does, because we're following this couple named Nathan and Maddie, and a long time ago they both dealt with childhoods that were not the best. Nathan was dealing with some pretty intense abuse from his father, and then Maddie was this girl making dolls in her bedroom when she saw something that she shouldn't have. And now they're both married, they have a son, and his father, Nathan's father, has recently died, and so he's going to be moving into his childhood home, which is the same home that his father used to abuse him in. And now this house may or may not be haunted. It's very spooky, it's very weird. This house is kind of out in the middle of nowhere almost, and it just has the most spooky, amazing vibes in this book. I just loved it so much. And this book is just, it's not what you think, you know? This book goes places where you probably wouldn't imagine it to go, and it's just so much more than the average horror novel. That's all I'm gonna say. I really enjoyed it. And then we have Mexican Gothic, which I feel like this one has gained so much popularity in the book community, especially because I'm pretty sure this won the Goodreads horror selection of last year, I'm pretty sure. It actually takes place in an isolated mansion in 1950s Mexico, and this is the kind of haunted house where you feel like something's behind the walls. It's just very spooky, and I think the haunted house aspect of this book is my favorite aspect of this book, and it's the part that kept me intrigued and kept me reading. This book also has a couple really great scenes that take place in a cemetery from what I remember. I don't know, it's been a minute since I've read this one, but I just remember really enjoying the haunted house aspects of this book. They were done so well. Another recent read of mine that will be in an upcoming reading vlog as well is White Smoke by Tiffany D. Jackson. This one is another recent release that actually just went on sale in September, I believe. And this book is described as Get Out meets The Haunting of Hill House. So I mean, it compares itself to Hill House, so that's already right off the bat, bam, you know it's gonna be amazing. And in this book we're following this young girl who is moving to a new house with her family, and her family is a new family, you know, because it's her mom, and then she remarried this guy who's now her stepdad, and she has this stepsister, and so their family is now moving as one family into this new house that may or may not be haunted. And this house, oh my my goodness, this real estate agent is like, don't go in the basement because it's off limits, like whatever that means, right? Huge red flag. And then she's also like, yeah, this is what we call an up and coming neighborhood, so make sure to lock your doors at night and like don't leave anything out on the porch if you don't want it stolen, and like, you know, don't let the kids wander off, and like just so many red flag after red flag after red flag. Like this is like the essential haunted house, like this is it right here. I really loved this book. I loved the atmosphere of this haunted house. It was genuinely so creepy sometimes. I hate that feeling in books when you feel like when the character's asleep, somebody's watching them. Like that is one of my most like, that's what really gets me about haunted house books. And this had plenty of that happening in this book, and for that reason alone I really enjoyed it. It's one of my favorite haunted house books that I've read. And then I have The Invited by Jennifer McMahon. Jennifer McMahon is an author that I absolutely love. Like she just, there's something about her writing in her books that I just really connect with. And in this one it says, a chilling ghost story with a twist, because a husband and a wife don't simply move into a haunted house, they build one. And yes, you heard that right, they build their own freaking haunted house, because they're basically like taking parts from the community to like put into their house, and like the parts, like the things might be haunted, but she just, you know, she cares about having things that like have history to them, even if it makes their house freaking haunted. I don't understand it, but you know, that's what they do. And this book was good. I think I ended up giving this one like 4 stars. Like it's not one of my all-time favorites, but the haunted house aspects of this book were really great. And honestly, like I'm just a sucker for any haunted house in a horror novel. And Jennifer McMahon's writing just really does it for me. Like I just really connect with her characters. She just makes me feel emotionally attached, which is rare in horror books. And then we have another recent read of mine, which is The Good House, because this one follows this woman named Angela who has this house in Washington, which that's cool, I'm in Washington. And they've had this house in their family for generations, but then a tragedy happens in the house with her son. And now she hasn't been back to the house in 2 years, and now this story is about her coming back to the house and like dealing with what happened there. There's also this whole thing happening too in this book where Angela's grandmother was said to have like magical powers, and that she like put this curse on the town. I will admit this book wasn't my personal favorites, because I do think this book is a little bit too long for me personally, and it just drags a little bit in parts, but the haunted house elements of this story are truly spooky, and like it was the main reason why I was still hooked into this book and why I finished it, because I do think the haunted house in this book is so well written. A few Stephen King books that I wanted to mention is you know, The Shining. Even though The Shining, it's not exactly a haunted house, it's more of like a haunted hotel kind of situation in this book, but I figured it was worth mentioning because if you enjoy reading haunted houses, you'll probably enjoy The Shining. So, but yeah, The Shining is more of a, you know, situation where it's a haunted hotel. It's this family who, you know, the dad gets a job to go and like watch the hotel over a period of like 5 months. So the family's very isolated. They're stuck in this hotel together for 5 months. It's very isolated, you know, it's snowy. And you know, it's just great because the hotel may or may not be haunted. It's making them all kind of go batshit insane, and it's just a wild time. If you haven't read The Shining, highly recommend. I would also say Salem's Lot by Stephen King, and I feel like a lot of people don't know that there's a haunted house in this book as well. At least I did not when I read this book first, because there's this house in this book called the Marston House, and this house is known to be like very like haunted and mysterious in their community. He even has a quote from The Haunting of Hill House like right on the first part right there, which I was just like, what the heck? And yeah, the whole part 1 of this book is about the Marston House and how it's very like spooky and mysterious, and it was just something I really loved about Salem's Lot. Like it was definitely a standout part of the book for me. I loved reading about this spooky ass house. Another book that I personally didn't enjoy, but it's another horror novel that features a haunted house, is The Grip of It. And this is one that I didn't enjoy because I just didn't really care and connect with the story very much, but I will say the scenes with like the haunted house in this book were really well done. It's honestly been a couple of years since I read this one, so I can't even specifically remember what about this book didn't work for me, but I do remember some scenes. Like I still remember some scenes that took place in this haunted house, and it was just so creepy, so weird. And this one is like that standard trope of like this couple moving into this home and then they find out that something's going on there. Like it's just haunted, it's weird. And yeah, so I figured I would mention it on this list, even though it wasn't a personal fave for me. I think I ended up giving it like 2 or 3 stars, but still a haunted house. And then the last 4 books that I wanted to mention are more books that are on the thriller side as opposed to the horror side, but they also feature haunted houses. And so I just figured if you're looking for more haunted house recs, I would just throw them in here because the first one one is going to be The Turn of the Key by Ruth Ware, and I think the thing that makes this one unique is that the haunted house is actually like a smart home. Like, it's a very technologically advanced home, and it's just spooky because, you know, you would think in a home like this advanced and this new, like, it wouldn't be haunted, but no. This girl's like hearing freaking footsteps above the bedroom even though there's nothing up there, and then she's also, you know, like, the smart home is just like turning on all the lights and blasting music like randomly. It's just spooky shit, you know. But this one's definitely more of a thriller, and this one follows this nanny who's going to be taking care of these demonic children and also trying to figure out how to control this smart house that's haunted. It's a great time. It's one of my favorite thrillers to ever exist. I also have The Nesting, because this is another one that's like a gothic thriller. It's described as a gothic thriller, and we're following this nanny who is going to Norway, and she's also going to be taking care of these children in this house that may or may not be haunted. It is a very similar vibe to The Turn of the Key, but this one is also just so great, and this one kind of made me afraid of moose just a little bit, just a tad. It was also just so freaking good, and it had that amazing haunted house atmosphere. And then the last two that I wanted to recommend, you'll probably know because it's Lock Every Door by Riley Sager and Home Before Dark by Riley Sager. I think more so Home Before Dark has like one of my favorite haunted houses that I've ever read in a book, and because it's about, you know, this dad who, he wrote this book called House of Horrors that was about the house that they grew up in. But then now we're following years later when the daughter, Maggie, like, her dad has just recently passed away, and now she's going back to the house, and now she's thinking maybe her dad wasn't so crazy after all, and maybe the house is haunted. And so this one, like, features an amazing haunted house. It's very Haunting of Hill House vibes in this book, which I just loved so much, but it definitely is more of a thriller than a horror novel. And then same with Lock Every Door, except this one features a haunted apartment building in New York City. It's called the Bartholomew, and we're following a protagonist who gets the opportunity to live in this apartment building, and she's getting paid to live there, which, you know, that's the first major red flag right there. Like, yeah, right, somebody getting paid like $4,000 a month to live in an apartment in New York City, like, okay, sure. But that's how you know right there, this place, there's something going on here. There's like weird things happening. She can hear things going on in the hallways, she can hear footsteps, she can see shadows. It's just very spooky, you know, very atmospheric. And also, the woman who was staying in her same apartment before her went missing. So there's kind of like a lot going on in the story. This one's definitely more of a thriller than a horror, but it still has that fun, like, haunted apartment building vibe, and so I thought I would mention it. I also do have, right here next to me, I have The Haunting of Ashburn House by Darcy Coates, and this is one that I have not yet read, but I figured I would mention it if you're just like looking for others, because I feel like the title implies that there will be a haunted house in this story. I've actually read 0 books from Darcy Coates so far, and I know that that's just like a damn shame because I know she's very well loved in the horror book community, and so I'm wanting to change that soon. Hopefully I can, you know, get to this one soon. That would be cool. But yeah, that is going to be all of the haunted house horror book recommendations that I have for you today. If you've read any of these books, let me know what your thoughts are on them. What is your like all-time favorite haunted house story? I would love to know, you know, because I think my all-time favorite haunted house story is Kill Creek, just because the house is such an essential part of the story, and I just love the fact that we're following 4 horror authors in this book. I just think it's so unique and just such a cool concept, and I just freaking love it. I adore it so much. So I would love to know, like, what is your absolute favorite haunted house book of all time? And also, if you have any other recommendations for me of books that feature haunted houses, because, you know, haunted houses are something that I really look for in a horror novel. Like, I just love it. I'm a sucker for a haunted house trope. I don't care how cliche it is. I eat that shit up. I love it. So yeah, let me know down below. Hopefully I didn't miss any that are like way obvious, but I kind of made this list on a whim. Thank you so much for watching as always, and let me know if you'd like to see any other videos of like horror books or thriller books, like specific things in them that you would be looking for, because I'm more than willing to do a whole bunch of videos like this recommending very specific tropes and things in horror or thriller books. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you very soon with another video. Bye.